Of course, you can have paper-based records, and you can have your computer records. Or Madame, which was there, a paparazzi of the group, that was there snapping away, that will become part of the electronic record that she'll be keeping. But sometimes there are different factors that can affect both. So some people like to keep paper records. You have some older persons who are not going to go in the computer thing, they keep paper records. But we say that sometimes there can be issues. You ever see you're trying to keep records and if you look at that page and you fill out the page of information on the record book, and then you're going to do some calculations and some analysis. And you're going to now have to go type it in one in a calculator, in a computer. Then it becomes tedious. Sometimes you can make mistakes when you're doing that. So that is what we say about the paper-based information. Or sometimes the paper might get destroyed. It get wet up, or it got torn, or something like that. Or sometimes you have it and you never stored properly, so somehow it get destroyed or it get misplaced, right? Not to say that the computer-based system doesn't have its problems as well. Whilst it's quick and it's easy, quick analysis and everything, you can also lose your data. If your person stop about, oh, my computer crash, or the jump drive stop work, and so therefore, even when we're doing computer-based, we have to have what we call the backup, right? So have extra copies of your information. They used to do that, especially paper-based, where you put carbon paper. So they used to do carbon paper and have an extra copy, right? So the computer make it easy for you to have extra copies. Now, we're just saying that a recording system, right, should be dependent on what is expected from the farm. And I have said this over and over again. If I'm a breeder, there is certain information that I'm going to collect, which a person who is going for commercial purposes might not collect. We also said that you can collect record on everything from the eye color to the hair color to the length of the goat tail or the length of the sheep tail, even the height of the animal, if we want to do that, right? So we need to know what it is that we're collecting, why we're going to keep particular records, right? And just quickly running through this, some of the requirements. It must be simple. We don't want anything complicated, right? It must be able to provide useful information. So for example, if I'm collecting eye color of the goat, what am I going to do with the eye color? Unless I was doing research and I was trying to see if there's a correlation between eye color and animal length or something, then I may say I'm taking eye color, right? But so there are information that it would be necessary for you to take that kind of information, right? And it must be available. It doesn't make sense you have records, but you cannot access it or nobody can access it. Then what is the sense of that, right? And also it must be efficient. You don't want any kind, because sometimes you can have a computerized system that's supposed to help you record keeping, but it is so time consuming and cumbersome, and you know, it seems to have so much procedures and steps that you have to go through that it defeats the purpose of being simple and easy. So we always have to pay attention to that. What records should you keep? We already said most of that already. Production records, when we were speaking about the information on the animal. Financial records, when we spoke about the bank and everything. So we're just going to run through these pretty quickly because we want to go to the calculation section. List of financial records, like if you're talking about doing the cash method or the accrual method, it's just basically saying if you're going to be tallying your information, probably like monthly or annually, depends on how you're going to be analyzing your cash flow. Production records, when we speak about production records, we spoke about many of these already. The health record of the animal, the weight of the animal. If you're speaking of milking animals, of course you want to know how much milk you're producing, right? We talk about the weight of the animal, and another important one that sometimes we forget is the inventory record, because we need to make sure that we have everything that we need on the farm and don't wait until we are out of it before we get it. If your kids were going to, or your sheep were going to lamb at a particular time, don't wait until after they lamb to realize you never had any iodine, or you never had any screwworm powder and all these different sort of things. These are things that you should have on your farm, or you run out of feed. Especially when you're doing poultry production and pig production, you don't want that to be happening with your animals. So inventory record is another important, and in inventory record, what is one of the key things that we need to look at when we're inventorizing things? Say you're inventorizing your medication. Exactly. A lot of us overlook that part of it. Even when you're buying your feed. Was it an old stock of feed? Because sometimes you probably buy a couple of bags and you put it at the front and you keep using it from the front and you buy a new one and there's a feed at the back that you haven't used, so it's getting old and stale around the back there. So that is why it's important to look at expiry date for different things, right? Now, the kind of information, like we were saying, depends on if you're a breeder or you're a producer. So when we speak about what we call them seed stock producers, so these are your breeders that are producing your Pelibways and your black bellies and your Dorper and giving you the high genetics, your quality buck that you're going to buy, or your commercial producers that are going to give you your crossbred animals, right? Basic records for seed stock producers, they're going to be looking at who are the parents of the animals, right? They're going to be looking at the lambing date or the kidding date, and they're also going to be interested in if it's part of a twin or part of a triplet or if it was a single birth animal, right? They're also going to be looking at the type of animal, the birth weight, the weaning weight, number of lambs reared to weaning, because a kid or a goat can have offsprings, but every time they have offsprings, it's only one that survives. They may have twins, you know, but always just one survive. So you may have to re-examine if you really want to keep that animal, because you have other animals that have twins that you have been feeding the same amount of feed. They're bringing twins to weaning, right? But this one just keep on bringing one to weaning. Something always happen to one of them, right? Always have a little weak one. So you may want to cull that animal, right? And remember we spoke about scrotal circumference, because we were talking about the production of sperm, and you know, they say it's synonymous with the size of the scrotum, and other features that you look for as well too. So that is some of the information that the seed stock producers, if you're a breeder, you must have these information. Different types of records, you'll keep records on the female and the kids, and you'll keep record on your buck. All we're saying, on the female, you want to know what breed of animal you have, the date it was bred. We spoke about that earlier. The kidding date and the kidding type. So of course you have to identify your goat, what breed it is, the date it was bred, the date it kidded, because remember we want to know if it always having early pregnancy or is always a late, you know, a late dropper. We want to know if it's always producing twin or triplets or it's a single, and any comments if one of them died or anything that happened to one in particular, right? So that is on the mother. So we have the mother information. Then we say we're going to look at the kid. And we said we want the birth weight, the weaning weight, the breed, the birth type, who was the parent, and the age of the animal. This is how you'll fill out your form to say you have the birth date of the kid, when it was born. We want to know which buck we had mated it with, because remember, you know, when these offsprings get older, we don't want to make the mistake of putting back that same offspring with that buck. So we need to know which buck was put with that doe to produce that offspring, right? Birth type, if it was part of a twin or a single, the birth weight, the weaning weight. We have some other weights that we take because we say we're looking at performance, right? The kid ID, because you have to give the kid an ID number as well, and what breed it is.
For multiple births, you want to capture the set of offspring as well?
So what will happen is that, suppose I have this, so this one is one of a twin. So I may write that twice. So the birthday is going to be twice, because it was the same birthday. So I'm just going to fill in this, the table underneath. Same birth date, same dose, same buck. It may be male or female, so it may be one male and one female. I put twin again, right? I'll put what the weight of that animal was and give it its own ID number. Remember, this is not like written in stone.
Yeah.
So it's just for you to say how best it is that it works for you to capture that information, right? So they can have various combinations of it. Health records. We will write down what it is that we said happened to the animal. If it was deworming, most time it's deworming, or if it had CL disease or any other disease that affected it, what treatment was given, and the reaction of the animal. right? In your comment section, you can put that as well. And just to show the dates that you observed the animal looking sick, what animal number was it, right? The signs observed, especially if it's something that other animals start getting sick, you want to know which was the first animal that you observed looking weak, and what were the signs observed, the treatment that you gave, the dosage, how many times you gave that dosage, and any further comment that you want to write on it, right? If you want to write was medication was administered by vet, you put that information for yourself why you're putting that information. Because remember, I was telling you that we can have a lot of different type of records. So I'm just showing you even just some of the few, because in the book you'll realize that we have sales records, purchase records, different types of records. So and we keep updating the book, we keep adding things. So what you'll have is like the farmer would have a visitor's book. When we tell persons about biosecurity on the farm, we speak about signs and we speak about having a visitor's book. I think sometimes too, because we're islands that don't really have serious animal diseases that require strict biosecurity measures. So sometimes we're a little bit loose where that is concerned in terms of putting in all these practices in place, the foot bath, the signs, the fencing, and the visitor's book. And it is very important that we do that, especially the visitor's book, because if something happens, we want to know who was the last person that came on the farm. Yeah. Not to blame anybody, but at least you want to know, who has been coming and going on and off your farm. And that is why we always say the signs to direct the person to go to the farmer or administrator or whosoever farm manager first before you start parading on the farm.